drag and drop files to the pinboard. That's a request that I made. It's great. You can still put shortcuts. You see the bunch of icons in this bottom left-hand corner. They have a little pin with a little red marble dot on the top of it. That's the shortcuts. If you are saving from a program, you can just drag from that save box onto the pinboard. So if you've got a lot of windows there because you are multitasking and you haven't got the one open that you want, and of course you then go and click on the hard drive icon and then your save box disappears and you've got to go all the way around the houses to do this, and then you've got another window on top of all the other windows, all you would need to do is just clear a bit of a space, and generally we've got something that's around that you can see, and you can drag and drop to there. If you want to copy a file from a shared hard drive, all of my data at Orpheus runs on a central NAS. Now, if I drag that file across, it takes it as a shortcut. That's the default. It causes my brain a bit of confusion, but what we have done, and it is available to be changed, is I can hold down the control key and then it will perform a copy. So I can drag a file from a different drive, and you may have half a dozen across the bottom, I don't know. But you can drag and drop onto the pinboard, because that may be you want to work on something just temporarily and then move on from there.
So if you do a shift drag, does that move? As it does with the rest of RISC OS?
I can't remember, I haven't done that one. So good question. We can try that, that'd be interesting. So let's before I just do that, I'll show you. I've done a menu, so we've got the display. Some of this is absolutely bog standard, so it's complementary to the old pinboard. You can change the size of the icons. That's the highlighted file. Tidy will just move it slightly, but you can align it to a grid, so all the ones in the bottom corner there have been aligned to a grid. If you've been doing work through a day and you've got lots of things everywhere, drag and select all of them, go to the selection menu as we've got here, say align to grid, and they will all jump and move and sort themselves out. Unfortunately, as it's all moving it on the grid, select like that, do menu, go to selection, and align to grid. And if anyone were out of alignment, they would have jumped into position. So I haven't got any there that I can show you. So we've got to select all as well, if you wish. Show pinboard is a useful one. If you've got lots of windows, it will just bring the pinboard up. So if you're looking for a file that you know is on the pinboard, and we've done a big red button at the bottom.
Yeah, sorry, you're going to let Darren say it. You've got keyboard shortcuts for that.
There is as well. I can't remember. But click to restore the window, and then we'll pop back up there for you. So we can create a new directory, so normal pinboard. We have a section of pinboard that does stickies. Now, depending on your knowledge of other OSs, the Mac people most probably know it better. There was a sticky program. We all know what post-it notes are. Post-it notes generally are sitting outside the monitor. This will give us the option to pop it inside the monitor. And you can move it around. And you have various things, so you can make a note on the fly if you're talking to somebody on the phone. If you're like me and you're using it for business, I can make a quick note, come back to it an hour later. If I turn the machine off, and then turn it back on. The sticky notes are saved on shutdown of the machine, so you've got that. You're not going to lose that. And as you can see, we can delete it, change titles, foreground colours, background colours. No. I'm afraid I've got a really odd coloured screen here that I'm working from, so my apologies. But you've got various items that you can play with on the stickies, and when you're not on it, you lose all of the extra furniture around. So you could have quite a few of those on the screen if you wanted to. If we want to actually see the pinboard directory, we've got an open there, and you can see that it's in boot, choices, pinboard.saved files. And you can see what files I've made a show directory there, and you can see the pinboard to PDF. So you've got a shortcut there on the menus, so you don't have to go shift, double click on plain boot and then worry about deleting the wrong bits, killing the machine. I'm sure most of you are far too proficient to do that, but we've got a shortcut there so that you can get at it as well. And you've still got the normal save pinboard that you can do. If you put something new up there, you can do it manually like that, or in the configuration options, as I discovered the other day, having said, I forgot to save it. And then I crashed the machine because I was testing another piece of software. Bother, I've gone and lost that file that I needed for the show. It was pointed out to me, well, have you set it in the configuration options? Oh, have we got that in there? So this is as new to me, really, although I've had it on my machine and I've been using different pieces like the shortcuts and dropping the files on there. I haven't actually gone through and spent the time. If I just purchased a new piece of software and I was reading the manual. And you can also reset the changes. So if I now go to configure, you can go to configure in absolutely the normal way by going to boot, clicking on it and accessing it via the pinboard that way as well. And you can see that pinboard is just there on the third row on this screen. And you'll see exactly the same window come up, so I'll just duplicate it there. So you can get at it in the normal way, you don't have to do it anything differently. So, custom image, as you can see, I went out a week or so ago and we had a really nice foggy day, and this is about 200-300 yards up the road. That's a JPEG shot on my Nikon digital camera, and I just copied the file over onto into a folder. Strangely enough, there's the shortcut for photos. There is foggy start, and one of these here is the backdrop picture that you see there. But one of the extra things, I put a JPEG in. We've got a cache button. JPEGs take a while to redraw on the screen when you are moving things around. If you click on the cache, I believe I'm correct in saying it then gets processed and saved as a sprite file, which will be an awful lot quicker, and that's the option to turn that on. One of the fixes in 2.01 is that percentage symbol will be slightly over to the left. At the moment, if you try and click on that cache button, if you don't click in the right place, you can't actually turn it on and off. So that is a fix that is coming. So if you have a problem, please just put the pointer in the top section and then you'll be able to do that. If I move the mouse pointer down, you'll see that I can't toggle it on and off. But that fix, I found that last week. We'd all missed it for the last 6 months.
Whoa.
And it has been in there for that long. So we've now got that fixed. But I set the icon bar opacity, this option here, at 50%, which means on the icon bar at the bottom, it's basically transparent. So let's put it up to 100. And we've got our normal RISC icon bar. put it at 10% and you can barely see the bar. Obviously, there is a compromise. You've got text there. You do need to be able to see the text. So, yes, you can see that we've had to put a background behind the fonts. It might not be the most elegant way, but that's the best way we've found so far. Any ideas? Please let us know. Have a look at the source code. We would always love to improve it. Let's put it back to maybe something a little bit. There we are. So, but it does show that the actual image, whereas in the past when you did the pinboard and you put a photo up, you got a slight problem because the whole screen was not used. This is a 1080p screen. It is a proper 1080p image on the screen because it actually goes down behind the icon bar. So if you've got a really pretty picture that you need to see some of the details, we've given you an option to do that. So I haven't seen anyone running it at 0%, but there may be a picture. We now have this, yes, the image is either shifted up or it's squashed or it's slightly not at the right ratio. That's not applied. You've got a screen like this which is 1920 by 1080p. If you have an image that is 1920 by 1080p, that's it, corner to corner. You can, of course, just have a normal plain colour, and you've got the standard images. So we've not taken anything away, we've not stopped anything. So if you really adore that RISC OS on a grey background stippled effect, you can still have that. It's not going to cause you any problems. Pin appearance. Exactly what it says on the tin. You can set various options, change the icon size. Really, you can see all of the ones there. I said this was going to be the boring bit as I go through the configuration. But you can change the icon text colour. So let's change it to bright red. There we are. We have bright red text.
Richard, when I finish totally screwing up my desktop and want to put it back again, does the default do just this tab, or do I have to go back to the entire default configuration?
I don't know, I haven't tried. Shall we see at the end, Mark?
Yeah.
I'll leave these changes there, I won't put things back, and we'll look at reset and default as we get to the end. I'm guessing it's most probably explained in the manual, so I could cheat and go and have a look. But, this is one that most probably I'm more used to. We can iconise to top right, we can stack it vertically or obviously horizontally. Button, icon bar, top left, top right, bottom right, all the options to put it all around the screen when we're iconising the window. And the option that, let's select one. We go to that file, there's the option to tidy. So if I click that option, it will tidy to the top left and then stack it horizontally. So I shall say tidy, and if you look at leaflet 9-9, that's now gone up. Let's see what happens if I tidy pinboard, that's appeared next to it at the top there, because they're stacking horizontally across the top. And I have set it to arrange the pinned icons on a grid. Obviously, if I turn that off, and then I move around, then they're not really well set up now. So if we select all of them, as I did earlier, and say selection and align to grid, it won't do it. Sunset. So I do apologise if I'm not demonstrating this very well. So we have a selection, align to grid. Come come and see me on the stand, and I will ask the programmer why I'm doing this wrong.
Is there a big check there saying unlock? Don't take that. Would that do it? Unlock position?
That's for the selection. That's for that selection. But I should be able to just say align to grid. There we go. If you notice the artworks one, I had it right on top of the other one, so it was aligned to the grid manually. So that's now moved it and aligned to grid properly. I am going to tick that back. To there, so I don't make too much of a mess. Here's the stickies. So you can change what the fonts are, depending obviously on what fonts you've got in your machine. So if you want a nice cursive font, or you want that lovely primary font that the kids use because it's quite easy to read, you can set those there as well. And you can, if you want to, save where these stickies are saved. So if you find that where it is at the moment in the boot sequence offends, or it's not in the right place for you, you maybe want to put a stickies folder in a folder called work off the main hard drive. You do have the option to change that, and you can just drag the pinboard stickies to the appropriate folder. Yes?
I was just wondering about the stickies. If you go to that directory, obviously if you're on a non-pinboard 2 machine, it will reload a sticky. Well, could you drag the sticky name, say, into edit on a machine to say to read it and edit it?
I believe it's saved as a data file, so yes, if you put it into a text editor, you'll have a very long list. If you've got 100 stickies, you'll have 100 stickies.
Oh, it's not individually set per sticky?
Not that I'm aware, but again, we can ask the programmer on that one. My apologies for not being as knowledgeable as I should be on this. This is the pinboard directory location where the saved files are. Again, you can change this if you want. Auto-save on exit. Well, that seems jolly sensible to have it set to always. I believe the default is it comes as off.
Oh, really?
So again, you need to read the manual, just go through. It's best that you check it and set it up the way you want to do it. We don't want to force anyone. You don't even have to download it and use it. But it is free. So most people will take that opportunity. Overwrite saved files, always rename or confirm. So if you're taking a file that has the same name, it's going to ask. In 2.01, one of the things that we found was in this version currently, so this is a fault, I'm telling you about this up front. If I was doing a control drag from a NAS to move the file over, what it would do, it would overwrite the file if it had the same name. Now if you're dragging the same file because you've forgotten that you've already done it, that's not a problem. However, you might have 2 versions of a file if you are dealing with files in different places. I have that problem with my NAS. Sometimes I'm working on something locally and I forget something, or I've saved it to a different directory. I then drag an original back in. So in 2.01, if a file has the same name, it will append a -1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how many times it's on the desktop or on the keyboard. So that's coming in 2.01. The code is already there, we just didn't have time to get it into the zip folder. So that one will be there and will be available for everyone within the next, I hope, week to 10 days. That's one of the ones that I was very concerned about, because I lost a file doing that one day.
Ooh.
But it was a copy, so always work on a copy. This can be an interesting item if you want to do this sort of thing. I have dragged a draw file into the image preview here that says Orpheus Internet. my other alter ego. If I enable the watermark and position it in the top left-hand corner, you do have a try button, but now you will see Orpheus Internet. So if you want to advertise something, or you have a picture within a picture, or a specific draw file, the whole point of Pinboard is it's not a business program, it's something that's just enjoyable. In some instances we've put some fun stuff in here, but they're things that you can do on Windows PCs and Mac machines, and RISC needs to put itself at the same sort of level. If you're a new person coming in, they would expect to be able to use the Pinboard in a similar manner. We're most probably quite happy with it as it is, but hopefully this change is good, or you can just carry on as normal.
Usually you could have no background picture and just have a watermark, and therefore you could have a big draw file.
Yes, if you want to do it that way,
yeah.
yeah, if you want to, Brian, no reason not to. I haven't tried that, it's worth playing, but you can change the offset. You've got scale here. It's, I think that's making a big difference.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like we can. There we go. So, and we can move it around. So maybe I want to have it just down on the middle right-hand side there. So, yeah, it's just a way of putting watermarks in. And of course, if you set that and have pale washed out colours, it will blend into the background. Just another option there that someone requested we were able to put in. Enable show hide all Windows key press. So at the moment we've got this F12, and that does the same thing, gets rid of all the windows. And you were asking if there was a key press as opposed to the button at the bottom. It's set up at the moment as F12, but you can set the code and it will tell you press the key combination that you wish to use to show or hide the pinboard. So you may have to try a few different things, but that way you should hopefully avoid having a key press that another of your favourite programs or utilities is currently using. So we've tried to make it as flexible and non-invasive as possible. Various other options that you can set or unset. Don't remove pins if dragging with adjust. So again, I'd have to read the manual. I'm guessing at the moment that if I do drag with adjust, I can lose a pin on something. So click, hold as a shift double click. That may be useful if you've got a dodgy mouse in the instance of a device with a trackpad. Again, that's a useful item. I'm not using the trackpad on this Pinebook Pro at the moment. Andrew most probably won't like me. It's not the world's best trackpad, but I'm not the best person to talk to it about because I've got Apple Macs that have glass trackpads and they're most probably, I think, the best in the world. So slight difference there, but it just makes things, again, this is another, it makes it more useful for you. But that's why I'm using the mouse on this one. I also have another we have a beta piece of software that we're testing as RISC Developments. Most of you will know about the program called HID, and Paul Roivers of HID in the Netherlands is working to put some fancy things on the trackpad for us. But at the moment it's not working well, so as I've got it loaded, it makes this trackpad virtually useless. But that's just a tester's tale of woe for you. Enable control to import files while being dragged. I've spoken about that. To drag a file, unfortunately I can't show you, I don't have another drive to plug in, but that's where you have to press the control key to get the file there rather than dragging the file and getting a shortcut to it. So I might, if I had a shortcut there that was linked to my NAS which is back at the office, and obviously this is not on the network in this room here to demo it, or when I'm back on the stand we don't let everyone have access to our NAS here. Then if there is a shortcut, you will see that it does the usual RISC OS thing. You get sort of half an image and a crinkly line at the bottom, basically telling you no, that shortcut is not available to you. So you don't then have to worry about double clicking on it and then sitting there while this timer goes round forever. Enable Shift Control to move files being dragged. There we are. There is the answer to whoever was asking the earlier. I think was that. Yeah, there we are. Yes. So if we click that, then yes, we've got the move option. So display file information while hovering over the pin. There we are, and that says that's in the pinboard folder :leaflet 9-9 .pdf or /pdf that we'll discuss. So you've got information there. If you don't like that, you can turn it off, and you have to hover over it for at least 1 second for that to come up. So if I just go quickly on it and then move, it's not there. And if I just leave the mouse pointer there, it pops up. So that may be useful for you. Show info option on pinboard backdrop menu simply gives us info at the top to tell you which version of pinboard it is. So obviously somebody said that we didn't need it, or we do need it, so there's the option to turn it on and off. It's just something you don't have to have on that listing. And one that most probably should always be ticked, always confirm delete. That can save us all an awful lot of stress. One of the things I have had a habit of doing is not realising I'm on a shortcut, and then I ask it to delete the file.
Ooh.
So having always confirm delete on is quite a useful thing. Always read the menu. Double check what you're doing. If you are removing a shortcut, we want the remove shortcut option, not the delete file. So let's click on set, and you were asking about the default and the reset. Which button would you like me to press
I'm
first?
curious, it's a bit like hibernate sleep on Windows, is what's the difference between default and reset, and whether they work on the whole setting or just like the miscellaneous tab?
I'm guessing the default just sets it back to the default that we ship inboard to as for all the options.
And reset?
Reset. Yes. Maybe that's the one that will affect everything that's on the pinboard.
Maybe that puts it back to what it was when you first opened the config window.
Could be.
Although, as you've opened and closed it lots of times, that's going to be very important.
That's going to be very interesting. So let's try.
So it doesn't delete everything on your pinboard.
There we are. No, it hasn't deleted everything on the pinboard. And when you do an update, because that was my first question when I was given an update to pinboard, is especially when we move from our first version of pinboard, which you don't have, yes, it did lose all the pinboard icons, and no one told me. So that was fun, but I'm a tester. So
Then now click on reset, what happens?
That's when you lose on your pinboard.
It's reset it back to what it was that we've been playing around with. So on default, enable show hide all Windows key press is not ticked. And then if I reset it, let's put the tick back in. I think you'll have to have a play and read the manual, Mark.
The other question was whether default did just that window or all the settings, wasn't it? So
Yeah. No, the colour's still red on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
I've
So that hasn't
set
changed
yet.
Yeah.
It has reset. It's gone back to what it says.
So,
Oh yeah.
okay, if I say set now, this bar is already open. He doesn't like it. That's worth me talking to Andy on the stand, who is our programmer, and talking to him about that. Someone can, if you guys also come around and say, we saw Richard do something that didn't seem to work, then he will borrow this and we can talk about it there. So yeah, maybe we need a little bit of smoothing on those two buttons. Andy will most probably tell you more authoritatively as he wrote it what each button is meant to do. I'm muddying the water here, so I apologise for that. Thank you, Charles. You've both probably had enough of me making a complete fool of myself today. So,
Can I ask one question?
yes, I was going to say, if there's a couple more questions, I'll take those.
So pinboard 2 is obviously a drop-in replacement for pinboard and really exciting. Is the plan that it becomes part of the RISC-OS core release which you actually own? Or is it going to be a separate enhancement on RISC-OS Dev's website?
For the time being, it will be the latter, that you download and then install it on there. This code has not been passed through by rule. The standard rule protocol is, it would appear, as far as I understand, so I'm happy to be corrected, that if it's not one of their bounties and they don't have the time to pass over the code for their approval, it won't go into their tree, unfortunately. But we want them all to be able to do this. So eventually it may end up in our RISC-OS Direct tree, if you like, that we've got. But that's the whole joy of having open source software. If Mark Stevens, I know you work for a company called IDR, if you want to have your own GitHub, it's RISC-OS, it's open source. The minute it went open source, this was something that was always possible to have. If you talk to Paolo, wonderful chap, he's got I've seen his working office. It's quite scary, even as an IT person, I was in awe. I've got a lot of monitors. No, he's got 3 or 4 times. He works in security, he does an awful lot of stuff, can't tell you too much about it, because he wouldn't tell me either, which is fair. But, you know, he's got his own flavour of RISC-OS. Charles, who did things for RISC-OS Limited, he's got his own particular flavour running on his machine. But if they want to share it, of course, because it's open source, it's perfectly legal to do so. So, really, open source is a bit two-edged, but it does give us, as end users, I think, a better choice. And if somebody wants to mix and match and move through, a little bit more difficult for support, and obviously, we'll support RISC-OS Direct. We'll have their forum, and people can go there, and you can all discuss, how this particular one on the beta hasn't quite worked, and point things out. That's the whole point. I think of open source. It's called collaboration. So it's not Acorn and us as customers, and we lump it or like it, and we buy the upgrade or not. Open source says, I've got an idea. Someone comes along and says, yeah, I'll run with that, or I'll do that. And I think in the long term, that's better for all of us. We can all do different things. Not in competition, apart from maybe mine is better, but that's a personal opinion. Yeah, my car's better than your car. I polished my car today, your car's dirty. My version of RISC-OS has more shiny things than yours does. Okay, but we can all share it. And because it's open source, if somebody wants to gently nick a bit of code is probably the wrong language, but responsibly ask, may I have this code, I want to put it in there. That's the whole point of it being, that's, to me, as a person, that's what open source is about, that we're going to share, and we're going to move RISC-OS in whatever flavour, however, going forwards. There will always be main versions, if you like, of RISC-OS that are supported and most of the dealers use. But if we have Fiery OS based on RISC-OS and various other things, I don't see that's a problem. If someone does really bad coding, then yes. But I think common sense says nobody would want to borrow that code to put it in as it is, unless they're a programmer, they've got the time, and you want to do that. And I get excited then, because maybe we'll have something interesting and different and new. Really a little bit like Pinboard, it could have been released as a £20 utility for people to purchase, but the decision was made, we're going to have it as open source, and yeah, people will be able to have the source code and go, oh, that's badly written in my opinion, and change it and feed it back to us. We want that. We're a small community. The more we all help each other, the more we will all have, and I think the better off we'll all be. Sorry, I digressed there. Did I answer your question, Mark?
You did, although I would counter to some extent we want a single source of truth, which is going to be
Would you like to tell Linus Torvalds that in Linux?
I fully understand, but I think it is desirable. Otherwise, we get people who download the rule version and say this sucks because I can't configure the pin board.
Yes. Well, we are making it freely available, so you can download it and use it.
If you know it exists and you don't exist.
We do try, but there's only two of us. I had toothache last week, so I wasn't on the ball.
Doing well.
Thank you. Right. Oh, sorry. Adrian.
Try not to embarrass you, so I'll go around the houses
That's all right.
before asking the straight question. RISC Development own a piece of software in which we were promised all sorts of development on when we spoke about it. When I spoke to you on the telephone, and you said you'd make an announcement, or thought we'd have to make an announcement.
You're going to have to remind me what it was we were talking about, sorry.
Impression X.
So it's a question about Impression X. We still haven't come to a conclusion yet. We will make an announcement about Impression Publisher and the way forward, but we've been very busy in the run-up, obviously, to this show and organising this. So Andrew and I, as you, it sounds like a broken record. It's not excuses, a statement of fact. I have to pay my mortgage as Genesis Developments and Orpheus Internet. If some of you are my customers, like you are, Adrian, if you ring me up, I can't say to you, really, I'm sorry, I'm in a meeting about Impression X at the moment. You'll have to wait for me to restore your broadband. I have to stop and sort out the slightly more immediate because you're paying me money for that. We are thinking about it. We have had various discussions, but we haven't come out with a sensible answer. So it's something that will be announced. I really want to get this resolved as to what is happening with it. I'm going to say this year. I would like that to be an awful lot shorter than that.
Richard,
so maybe wait for it.
You've said you haven't got an answer yet. Can I ask what was the question?
Where's Impression X going? What's happening to it?
We were promised.
Lots of things were promised a good number of years ago. Some things have happened, some things haven't. We've been asked to look after Impression X now. It's come into the RISC Developments. I'll be brutally honest. It's given Andrew and me a headache. But I think we prefer to drag things on a little bit, and it's most probably too long as it stands, and try and give you a reasonable, sensible answer as to what we feel we can, can't, or what's going to happen, rather than make a swift decision and say, oh, stuff it, or, you know, oh yeah, great, yep, you know, we're doing this, and then fail to deliver. It's something that I learned a good number of years ago. Someone's telling me I need to get off. When I was a mere worker bee at Carson, there were lots of things that I learnt from Jack and John on their projects that were going forward, but all of those projects came to fruition, and they announced them in due course. But how many of you knew about Ionics before it was launched? Very, very few. And those of us that did had to sign an NDA. Even I, as a worker, just had to sign an NDA. They were very strict, and really we've done the same sort of thing. We knew about the TCP/IP stack, we were doing an awful lot of stuff, but until we really felt it was ready to give a beta out for people to use, and we did it incrementally, we didn't make an announcement. Because if we weren't sure that we could deliver it, we would rather say nothing. Impression X is there, and the programmer is there, and is working on it. But what the future is going to be, until we've really decided, we're not going to say. So,
is it still the same programmer that was supporting
yes,
it?
Yes, it's still Richard,
yeah.
Another one of me.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm sorry, Adrian. At the moment, it's still question mark. Seeing this space at some point in the future. Right, I better go because we'll need to come in and set up as well. Thanks ever so much, gentlemen. Go out and spend 10 minutes.